What did you want the most from your mommy and daddy at 5 years old? Very simple. Most of us wanted love and attention, presence, fully to be seen and to be heard. And that is our role now as the adult versions of ourselves, to go back and provide that. And like I said, they're very simple. Once you do it, they're good. And I ask, do you believe them? Do you trust them? Are you complete? I'll ask the inner child of my client. And the inner child is always right. They never lie. And they will rat you out if you're not being authentic with them.
In today's busy world, how can we find the inspiration, knowledge, and energy to live a healthy and empowered life? If we balance and harmonize our mind, exercise our body, live according to the laws of nature, and connect to spirit, can we find a way to heal, become our authentic self, and live our purpose with love? I am your hostess, Amy Fournier, and welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite. Welcome back to the show. In this episode, I had the pleasure of talking with Rosanne Grace. Rosanne is a metaphysical intuitive coach, and she's an expert on accessing and dealing with the inner child. You know, the inner child is basically our subconscious programming that we all have that unfortunately we're not even aware is in there. And it's the tape that's running our lives and our beliefs and our behaviors. And it's just so powerful to learn how can we access that programming. And the way that Rosanne teaches people and helps people is through the inner child. And she helps us to learn how to have better intuition, how to get in touch with our inner self, our higher self, and the divine that's in all of us, and how to avoid spiritual bypassing, which is something that's so common right now, unfortunately, and basically just not to let that happen. And we also talk about abandonment and the common fear that so many people have of abandonment, and which is just such a painful way to live, feeling like you're separate from others or from your source or from divine love. It's just so painful, and I'm so grateful that Rosanne went there with us. And she talks to us about karma, karmic healing, how to make sense of fate and destiny and free will, and how that soup all mixes together, how to protect ourselves from other people's energy, particularly when you're a spiritual empath, and how to use the divine feminine in a positive, non-manipulative way, which is basically the shadow side that we all want to avoid. And she shares with us how vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness, something that I have been learning myself over the past 3 years. And because truly it is one of the strengths of the feminine that has been misunderstood. And lastly, she talks about how we can incorporate and empower ourselves and empower our inner child. She gives us really practical ways to do that in our everyday lives. So snuggle up for this one. Make your inner child really comfortable and cozy, and make her or him feel safe and warm and loved. Maybe grab a blanket or a nice warm cup of tea, sit in the sun, and let's go ahead and talk with Rosanne Grace. Rosanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Amy. It is an honor and a pleasure to be with you once again. And I am super grateful to have this opportunity to share with you and your audience anything you want to ask, anything that is divinely guided or channeled that wants to come through. Always the highest and greatest good be served. Thank you.
Yes, agreed. Oh my gosh, it's going to be a beautiful show. All right, well, let's start off with you please defining for us, what is a metaphysical intuitive coach? What do they do? How can they help us? What do we need to know?
I got into this work. I was very 3D. I was a high-end luxury real estate agent for many years. And I say I was killing it, but it was killing my soul. So my soul, my inner child, my higher self, whatever you want to call it, decided to blow that up. And it was necessary to get me onto the path to come to do the work that I came to do. So as a metaphysical intuitive coach, I not only speak to the client's higher self, I can speak to the divine intelligence of their body. Their inner child is paramount, because what I discovered doing this work, even though I could understand the subconscious or the communication with the superconscious, it's still very abstract for our humans to understand. So I asked, please show me a more graceful and easier way, a more user-friendly way. And that's when the inner child came in. So the inner child is kind of like the gateway. I call her the bouncer at the club. Like, you want access to the divine, you have to go through them first. Those inner children carry all of the subconscious programming, any ego wounds, any limiting beliefs, corrupted codes, programs, patterns, whatever. And in order to have more access to your divinity, or to your intuition, your gifts, your higher awareness, knowing, or wisdom, you have to meet their needs first. That's what people call spiritual bypassing. Oh, I just want to be in the light. It's like, no, you have to go through the healing process first. And so through my own healing process in doing this work, I had to go a hard route so I could teach an easier route. And Source literally said, you needed to know what disgrace was so you could know grace. And my name is Grace. Rosanne Grace was my given name. So I didn't add that on, because I know a lot of people that do. And people ask me, like, did you add that? I'm like, no, that's on my birth certificate. I was born with that. And I did understand the power, the metaphoric as well as literal inclination of what that was going to be in my life, obviously many years ago. And I've been doing this work for about 10 years now. My own awakening was very destructive, we'll say. And so going through that suffering and that humbling and that surrender was absolutely necessary. And because my ego was so attached and so invested in its identity in that third dimensional construct, it needed to basically implode itself in my world or my reality in order to see beyond those limitations, to be able to have compassion, empathy, but above all else, to have gone through that experience so I could be relatable and understand when other versions of me show up as my clients. I know exactly where to go because I listen to their highest aspects or their soul or their inner child. And I'm basically just channeling what they're coming to me to receive.
Okay, we're going to definitely get into all your work, because I know our listening audience probably still doesn't quite understand what exactly you do. But I do have to ask you, before we get into that, I find it very peculiar and very admirable and inspiring the way you describe that your ego blew up your life, created this scenario, what have you, rather than something happened to you, or this thing happened to you outside of yourself, rather than identifying as the victim, if you will. I find it very just high five right through the screen to you, that, you look at like my ego, I did this to myself. I blew up supposedly a perfect life.
Yes.
Tell us about your mindset with that.
It was very much like a death, because the ego will want to maintain status quo. As you know, this is how we survived, Amy. This is how we grew up. This is how we fit in. This is how we belong. This is what success looks like. And I had it. I was driving my GT Bentley Continental. I was the top 4% of all high-end real estate agents in Southern California at that time, and living in my big $10 million oceanfront house. It looked perfect on the outside, and like I said, it was never ending. I would just keep going in that direction. And so I say my inner child, she was like, no, I can't do this anymore. This is not authentic. This is not what we came here to do. This is compromising and obligating so many parts of me that I didn't realize, because as inner children, we're taught how to compromise or obligate those parts of ourselves, again, to fit in and to belong to the family, to the tribe. I tell my clients, you're not going to get a job at 5 years old and get an apartment. You have to conform. And those ways that we conformed or trained ourselves to fit in, how we saw mom and dad behave or what they expected of us, or how to meet their needs or get our needs met. That became our patterns, our unconscious or subconscious patterns that we have recycled over and over and over again. So I'll be the good girl. Mommy and daddy will love me then. I'll be quiet. I'll be invisible. I'll be whatever they need me to be. Well, the light side of that is we're beautiful chameleons. We can get along with anyone, everywhere, anytime, any background. And yet the shadow side of that is I've lost myself. I don't know what I like. I don't know who I am. It's giving yourself away over and over and over again. And my inner child's like, I'm done with this. I'm done with all these stories. I'm done with all these beliefs. And so she imploded it. She was so bold and so brave. And I'm so very grateful that she got me onto my path, because I couldn't see the forest from the trees.
So when you say imploded, what exactly happened?
Oh, I'll share that part too. I went through a very scary divorce, and I picked the perfect, again, full responsibility. I created it. I gave that soul the script to play as my ex-husband, and he played it perfectly as the villain in my movie, I say. And he was very scary, and he said, I'm not going to make this nice. I'm not going to make this easy. And it wasn't. And so it was dismantling not just that relationship, it was being stripped of everything. He wanted to punish. And so taking everything. And then I happened to have a business partner who I didn't realize at the time was another version of my ex-husband. And those narcissistic personalities, again, I gave him the script too, and he played it perfectly. And so I was going through a multi-million-dollar divorce and a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, business loss, arbitration, I should say, at the same time. And I literally was driving in my car one day, Amy, from divorce attorney to real estate attorney. Back in Orange County, and I'm crying my eyes out, and I'm like, why? I'm not a bad person. Like, I've never screwed anybody over, not in business, like, what is this? And that's when they said, you need to know, you need to have the compassion and the empathy, but above all else, you need this experience. This isn't a punishment. And so I could hear source even back then. I just was mostly listening to my ego.
So was it auditory?
Ego.
Was that
I hear. Oh yes, I'm clear audience as well. And that was one of the first I'll say expanded gifts that I was given was the auditory. So the clairaudience came first, and then clairsentience, clairvoyance, and being able to see and everything else. But that was the first level. And like I said, I had always heard source, but I mostly lived out of fear and ego. And so I tell my clients, if you hear on your right side, that's usually your higher self, your inner child, your creative side, and your creator side. Left side will be mostly ego, analytical, fear-based, blah, blah, blah. Having that awareness. So I heard it. And of course, it didn't give me any comfort at that time. I just wanted it to stop. And I did. I thought more than one time of ending things because I couldn't handle the suffering. And obviously I did not. And that was, again, all necessary to get me to where I am today, and to surrender and to humble those parts of myself, but also to get deeper into the healing. And that's when Check work showed up, Paul Check's work. And I was doing a stretching class with my partner, who was also trained at the Check Institute, as well as I was, but he was more of a physical coach. And just stretching the fascia, I started crying and I wanted to throw up. And I went outside and I was like, okay, if this is what is stored in my body, because the consciousness of your cells also retain traumas and events and things. And I also do past life work, because it's not just this lifetime that we've carried stuff, it's many lifetimes. And so that's why I say a multidimensional healing, or multidimensional coach, because we do go through all of that in my sessions. And I said, well, if this is what's stored in the consciousness of my cells, clearly I need to go deeper into my healing. And that's what really set it off. So I say the divorce and the lawsuits were catalysts. And then a year later, I didn't realize my ex-husband had put me on personal guarantees. And yes, and there was
Sounds like my ex.
Yes, to the tune of like $7 million. And yeah, and so they were looking for him. He had disappeared, and they thought, well, maybe I was holding money for him. I was like, oh no, he screwed me before he screwed you. So, so even in that moment, and that's the first time my inner child showed up to me, and I was like, okay, we can't bypass this. And back then, I just talked to my ego to try and comfort those parts of me that were scared and worried and concerned. And even though I knew, okay, this is an illusion, we're just playing a game, but you cannot spiritually bypass. I had to go through it. And so I sat there in my living room and I asked my ego, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I heard all the excuses, all the fears. They take your money, they take your car, they take your business, they take your identity, they take all of it. And then I heard that little voice again on the right side. And she said, well, they can't take me. And that was it. I was done. I was done with that whole drama. I felt this complete peace run through my body and just breathe. When you can breathe deeply, you know that energy is clear. And I was like, she's absolutely right. I will always have a place to go, food to eat, friends and family. This is just stuff. This is everything outside of me I've identified my ego with. And none of it is true. None of it is authentically me. There was my authenticity speaking for the first time, and I could really hear her because I had surrendered myself enough to actually hear it. And I pulled my laptop out. I typed a letter to my attorney at the time, and I said, thank you for participating with this lesson for me. Whatever you and the other attorneys have to do, because it was like multiple suits going on. I said, by all means, continue on, but I'm complete with this lesson. Thank you. And 2 weeks later, he sent me an email and he said, congratulations, they dismissed everything. And I typed back and I said, I know because
it was done. You learned the lesson.
Exactly. One thing I share with my clients, when you're complete with the lesson, you're complete. Move on. There'll most likely be another lesson beyond that, but it doesn't have to be that ever again. And it doesn't have to be that dramatic. Once you understand the formula of surrender and how beautiful it can be, it's fast, it's quick, it's easy, it's clean. And that's why the inner child became so paramount in my work, because everyone can relate to their childhood. And that's the easiest gateway to go through. And children are so easy. They're just, you apologize, they're like, that's okay, and they move on. They don't hold grudges. They're beautiful moment-to-moment experience of innocence. And so it's returning those parts of ourselves to innocence. It's also soul retrieval. I mean, I've taught shamans, I've coached other coaches. That's a big part of my work too, is we love our rituals and we love all of this stuff, but sometimes we just need it to be quick and clean. It doesn't have to be drawn out. We make it a lot harder than it needs to be, Amy. So
yes, of
again,
course.
that's part of it. It's like I needed to know the hard way so I could learn the easier way and teach that.
Well, it's like we drink the Kool-Aid and then we don't really know what the truth really is until we're up against it, like you were.
Yes.
So then who would you say, Rosanne, are your clients?
Definitely already awakened men and women. So most people that come to me, and I did ask Source as of beginning of last year when they asked me to make my work more public, because I would see private clients. I asked, please only bring me those that can hear me and see me at this level, because it is deep and it isn't about revisiting trauma or things like that. It is literally about liberating. And these souls that have already awakened and are on this path just naturally go into that state so much easier and are more aware. And just like with your session, you've already done work. And so when I got to experience that space with you, it's so much more fluid and it's so much more direct, because Source is like, we don't have, like, I know time's an illusion, but they're like, chop people, like,
yeah,
like, let's get everybody, on the bus. So it's been mostly beautifully awakened men and women that are looking to go deeper or expand their consciousness or enhance their lives or the collective energy even further. And I actually do work with children, and it's interesting because children are not necessarily children like we think they are. A lot of them are very old souls or ancient teachers and very wise, and they hold a different kind of energy. It's actually a higher energy, and so they clear exponentially faster. And again,
Okay.
it's all for the collective. It's not just like, oh, we're just healing for, Amy's lifetime or Amy's lineage or ancestry. It really is energy, and it affects everything. So as within, so without. So as I mentioned, the video that I just posted before the podcast was talking about what you see out there in the world that disturbs you or triggers you. There's usually a deeper root of something that needs to be healed or cleared within. That's a reflection or a manifestation. And I have clients that projection, yes. And I have clients who are like, well, this is really happening, Rosanne. Don't you see this? And I was like, oh, I see it, but it's not in my reality. There's 7.5 billion realities just playing out on this platform called Earth. So it's like, well, what reality do you want to participate with? Just because you see it doesn't mean you have to participate with it. Knowing from a higher perspective that yes, that too does serve a purpose for the highest and greatest good, even though your human may not like it. There's others, that's souls that still need to participate with that, and that too serves its purpose.
Okay, so the typical person, if there is one, that comes to you to hire you then, or do you find that most of them are, because when I think about soul retrieval work and helping people access their inner child, to heal the inner child, obviously these are people looking for healing that are probably going through emotional, spiritual trauma or crisis, or have been for a while. I would imagine that a lot of the people are probably at their wits' end. They've tried all the conventional things, and I would imagine that they present to the normal world as people who can't get out of their own way, people who constantly make the same mistakes and berate themselves. Why do I keep doing this? I don't understand myself. I can't stop this habit, or I can't stop dating the same kind of person, or I can't start a healthy program, or I'm imagining that these are people that are struggling with emotional, spiritual things, and they're looking for someone to help them get answers as to why and help liberate them, and they would hire someone like you. Is that accurate? Or
that describes a bulk of my my earlier clientele, we'll say.
Okay.
Now, when I mean more expanded awareness, they've gotten out of that victim mode and they are looking to be that responsible creator in their lifetime.
Cool.
So that doesn't show up as much, but it is more like maybe they've cleared that level of like, why these patterns still happen to me? And yet I'll talk to their inner child. And they're like, they've cleared like 80% of this program or this pattern or this belief. There's let's get to the root of it. And like I say, most of us have hidden these parts within our deep subconscious for a reason. It was necessary. This is how we survived. This is how we got along. This is how we made it through. And yet the inner child's holding on to this, like, as soon as you liberate me of this, we can move on. We don't have to keep repeating this pattern. So it's not about revisiting, like I said, any traumas or events. It's more about that dialogue with you and your inner child to liberate them of any of those limiting beliefs that have been placed upon them by self or others. It's just we've attached loyalty to them because, oh, this is how mom and dad did it, or this is what I was told when I was 5. So it must be true. Not the case. All beliefs are untrue. It's really, designating, well, this belief works with me and I'm going to keep that one. This one obviously did not. It's false. I'm not participating with that anymore. And so it is it isn't just those that are, say at a crossroads or, yes, it's always about deeper guidance. Sometimes clients hire me just so I can channel answers for them. They have their questions, they're already in tune, but it's like, I may not be seeing this because I'm too close to it's hitting too close to home. Can I get
Yes.
this neutral third perspective? And that's where I come in. I also have clients that'll hire me for activations of their higher consciousness, their star knowledge, galactic knowledge, multidimensional knowledge. So there is a lot of that. I do quantum healing hypnosis work, which was founded by Dolores Cannon many, many years ago. And she transitioned on, I believe, 2014. And I was already doing the subconscious coaching and the inner child work for years prior. And then once I read her bio, I was like, I'm supposed to work with this woman. And then at the end, it said she had transitioned. Then I started having dreams and visitations from her. So I was like, yes, I'm supposed to work with her in some other capacity. And then I became a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, which you got to experience as well. And getting into those other aspects beyond our human, timeline, we'll say, because your consciousness resides in many timelines.
Yes, I definitely want to talk about my experience. So just for our audience, I had a session with Rosanne privately, and it was intense, and I do want to share that with everybody. But I'd like for you to please define for us how you would define inner child.
Okay, so the inner child would be those aspects of self that hold any wounds, any stories, any misbeliefs. So inner child, say, I'll use myself as an example. My dad was fun and kind, but he wasn't around very much. And so as a child, we don't know source or creator or God, goddess. We know mom and dad. These are our first relationships. So if mom and dad aren't meeting our needs, well, they're God and goddess. It must be me. It must be me that's not good enough to warrant their love and attention. Or, mom hits you, or she's, belligerent, or she's drinking or something. Something's more important than me. Or that job is more important than me. I must not be good enough. Or she hits me, so I must be bad. It must be me. All children at some extent will take ownership of that illusion, and it's not real. It's not true. They don't know how to love and be healthy parents to their own children. So how could they be healthy present parents to you as their child? So I introduce my clients' inner children to them, and invite them to step into that role as the ultimate healthy, present mother, father, God, goddess to those inner children. And it's not just the little ones. I mean, when's the last time you talked to, 18-year-old Amy? 36-year-old Rosanne had a lot of stuff going on. She needed love and attention too. And some of us don't know that kind of nurturing. Some of us never saw those examples or had those instructions or those models growing up. So like dads, I say, are supposed to be the cheerleaders. Like, that's my kid. Look at them go. I'm so proud of them. They affirm, they validate. The moms are the nurturers, the healers. And some of us didn't have either of that. Or we had one and we placed everything into that one. And then eventually that, wasn't enough. We have to learn how to fill our own cups, so we're not looking outside of ourselves for validation, which is why so many of us go through those relationships and will make our partner's mom or dad or one or the other or both to try and compensate. And then that goes into our love language. Well, if you only knew love and attention by getting hit, you'll create that pattern again with a partner, and you'll choose somebody that's abusive. So we have distorted love languages as well. So returning that innocence back to that child returns that innocence back to us. So we can look at these things with a curiosity versus shame or guilt or fear or judgment, because that does not belong to us, and liberating ourselves from all of it.
Do you find that most of the people that go back and do the soul regression and work with their inner child, have a lot of similarities. Like a lot of the issues for our inner children as a species are very common patterns.
Very
and stuff.
common.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Like
a very
what?
good point. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Abandonment is a big one.
Yeah.
The illusion of separation has got to be the biggest root of pain.
Okay, tell us about illusion. How is it an illusion if you really were like left alone or abandoned?
Illusion of separation started way before that. So the illusion of separation is the separation from source, like that fall from grace. Well, and that was one of mine too. Even after years of working with my inner child, I still felt this angst, Amy, and I was like, what is this about? And I remember meditating early one morning and by myself on the beach, and I heard, you feel like you upset the gods and you got sent here as a punishment. And I just started bawling, and I was like, there it is. This is way deeper than healing my mom and dad stories or my family lines. This goes back to feeling separate from source. And that is a big program within many religions. So you have to go through this priest, this other
ritual,
facility or facilitator to connect with God. And that's not true. I mean, I even have clients that have followed gurus, and I was like, so how does that work? You have to go through the guru to get to God? They're like, yes. It's so like a priest. I was like, and I could hear Source laughing in the background, like, no. Source came through my client during hypnosis and said, you could talk to a rock, a stick, the air. Source is everywhere. There's nothing that is separate. There's no separation, and you can't possibly do anything that source would not love you. Source is unconditional love. And so healing those programs or those distorted belief systems that have been passed down, again, through lineage, through ancestry, through lifetimes, and returning that divinity to those aspects of your inner child, which is also you, and clearing those illusions of separation. And that illusion of separation also creates suffering within our own relationships. Well, and as I mentioned, when they said other versions of you that will come to you and seek you out, I didn't understand back then what that meant 10 years ago. And it's true. I meet every version of me in my sessions, and there is a common theme. Those would be the main ones. The illusion of separation is the biggest wound. And also, when we hit that age, somewhere around 8, 9, 10 seems to be the average with all of my clients, around that point when it was no longer safe for us to be little kids, and we stopped being innocent. We left that little boy or that little girl behind, and we're like, oh, got to pull my big pants on now. This is how we fit in. This is how we belong. This is how we get our needs met. This is how we survive. And just separating from that part of ourselves creates separation anxiety. Remember, this is the micro and the macro. So you are God, goddess to your inner child. And we think we, fell from grace or separated from the divine. That is with us since we were little. And then, not to mention, like I said, other lifetimes, which I do get into and clear those as well. When you vowed to serve God, but you had God outside of you. It's like the divine's within, no different than the air you breathe. It's not separate from you until it goes into your nostrils. It's all connected.
So tell us about the soul recovery work. I mean, how would you define that? What is that?
So that, again, because soul is still kind of abstract for clients, that's why they guided me to go through the inner child. So it's just calling all of those inner child parts home.
Okay.
You are the safe haven. Yes. So you are the safe haven. You are the main foundation for all of them. It's returning all parts of yourself home to that heart, to your very essence of essences, all aspects of you from all timelines and lifetimes. And so when we go through that process with the healing sessions and the inner child work, that is mandatory to reclaim all those parts and bring them home, because they've always wanted to be home. They've always wanted to be congruent and complete. And yet those parts of us, we fracture those parts by holding on to those beliefs. Well, I'm not good enough, or I shouldn't be here. mom and dad didn't meet my needs, so I must not be worthy of love. So we will reinforce that unworthiness again, like I said, through all of our relationships, not just our intimate ones, all relationships, bosses, friends, coworkers, you name it. Well, I'm not good enough to warrant that kind of love or respect or attention. So this is my belief system. So the ego has to be right about its belief system. So it will repeat and collect more proof and evidence over the years. See, I'm not good enough. See, I'm only worthy of half-assed love, or I'm only worthy of abusive love, or whatever, because we tell those parts of ourselves, our inner child or our subconscious, believe it, and they will make it true.
But the sticky part is that usually that's subconscious. We're not even aware that we have those
Correct.
subconscious beliefs.
That's
it's not
where
like
a coach comes in.
Yeah, it's not like I'm walking around going, I'm not worthy. I don't realize I'm not worthy, and I don't realize I'm being a people pleaser because I'm not feeling worthy just being me without pleasing everyone and securing their validation of me. So this is all under the radar, which is what makes it such a what.
Yes, which is exactly why that's why I say, like, and from physical fitness and working with the Czech Institute stuff, a good coach is not there to criticize. A good coach is like, let's modulate this a little bit, let's tweak this a little bit, let's get your stance a little bit different. It's just enhancing what you're already doing. And so that's how I see myself as a coach. It's like, I can see things that you taught yourself how to hide from other parts of you. And I have beautiful coaches that have their own practice that I coach. And I remember one coach saying, man, Rosanne, I would have never found that. I said, of course not.
Yeah, it's too close to it.
Who's better at hiding stuff from you than you? You know where you would go looking. So it's, you purposely are like, hide this. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to feel it. And again, that part that needed to hide it at that time, it was necessary, because as a child, if you touched upon all of those feelings and all of those emotions at 5, 6, 7 years old, it would have destroyed you. So it needed to be buried or locked away for the time being. And so I said, we made all of us made those agreements. At some point, I will come back and liberate you of this. For now, this is how we needed to survive.
So is it safe to say that every human being has a damaged inner child?
We'll just say one. We won't say so much damaged as I would say ones that are holding on to false beliefs or operating out of those.
And to different degree, like some more. Yeah,
absolutely. Some more severe than others. Absolutely. But again, I say everyone's trauma is their trauma. It's unique to them. And so to say, well, that one was worse for them or that one was easier for them. Trauma's trauma. And so getting people out of trauma, they can't hear you and they can't create if they're in suffering. As you know, any pain will just limit them from anything else.
Okay, so for healing then, you will help facilitate someone becoming aware of these false beliefs of their inner child and some of the pain and hurt that the inner child has lived through. But then how do you actually go about helping them heal it? Other than being aware of it, don't they then have to?
They have to. So exactly. So the integration part is where I channel their inner child for them. I get the words that they need to hear. Okay. And then I have my client repeat those words to their inner child. So through visualization, visualizing their child is with them in that room. And they, again, step into that role as the ultimate mother, father, God, goddess, and say the words that they always needed to hear. What did you want the most from your mommy and daddy at 5 years old? Very simple. Most of us wanted love and attention, presence, fully to be seen and to be heard. And that is our role now as the adult versions of ourselves, to go back and provide that. And like I said, they're very simple. Once you do it, they're like, they're good. And I ask, do you believe them? Do you trust them? Are you complete? I'll ask the inner child of my client, and the inner child is always right. They never lie. And they will rat you out if you're not being authentic with them. And so I just guide it for them. And like I said, it's up to the client if they want to even speak about what happened. It's not necessary. The inner child doesn't need to revisit it. I don't need to. It's not my story, though it was my story too, but I've already been there and done that. So I'm just like, you can share whatever you want to share, or we can just go straight to your inner child and they're going to give me the words that they need to hear. And that is literally how fast and how easy it can be. And once they're liberated, it's done. We move on to the next topic.
Now, how about your experiences with clients that have had past life issues and maybe, well, let's talk a little bit about like karma. And like, you know, what is your take on a soul being reborn and, you know, in the position we come into in life and what we inherit and what we don't inherit psychologically as well as materialistically, you know, all that stuff. Like, am I going to come back as a frog next life if I'm a jerk? You know, like how does all this work? Karma, you know, what's your take on that?
Karma does exist. Absolutely. And so, most of my clients that I work with, this is their last human incarnation, we'll say. And so they are kind of graduating from the earth school, we'll say. And again, by doing this internal work, as within, so without, so you're helping to heal your ancestor, your lineage, but also the collective. You know, we're all connected at that soul level. And so, yes, karma does exist. And I do work with my clients on clearing any karma from any lifetime throughout all infinite realities and eternities. And source is very clear, though. You have free will. If you choose not to transmute or heal in this lifetime, you will be given the opportunity to do it again. It may not be in this form. It may most likely be in another form, but that lesson or that commitment that you made at a soul level to heal or to awaken or transmute whatever it was will continue on. So I say no decision is a bad decision, but there can be consequences. Because you cannot fail. All will eventually lead to the same place of true liberation, but it's just how gracefully do you want to do that? How much do you want to resist that? How do you want to surrender? That's where the free will part comes in. It's all destiny anyway. It's yet, how do you want to perceive it? Do you want to
I was just going to ask you that, like, where does destiny meet free will and fate? Like, what all these words that get thrown around.
I know, totally.
An expert like you, tell us your view on fate, destiny, free will. Or how's that mix go together?
So this was probably the easiest way that it was explained to me many years ago, because I had that same question, like, well, if it's all destined, then, you know, where's the free will in that? Free will would be the perception of your destiny, meaning exactly what you said at the beginning of the podcast. Do you want to be a victim? Do you want to be a creator of your reality? Victim to all the circumstances, or see how it was necessary that I went through that experience to guide me to exactly where I am today. You picked the souls that played the family that you were born into. You picked the souls to play the co-workers, the schoolmates, the lovers, the partners. We picked them all. So that part would be considered the fate and the destiny, because at a soul level, we already made those agreements before we got here and incarnated. The free will part would be what we just discussed. Am I going to be a victim to this and continue to repeat the cycle and not wake up to it? Or am I going to be the creator of my reality and be the responsible common denominator? Like, oh, I see how this was necessary. This was part of my destiny. I had to meet that ex-husband. I had to divorce him. I had to go through this. That's where the free will came in, where I stopped being the victim and I understood the power of why it was part of my destiny and how I chose that.
And I would add to that too, that free will comes in because we're never done learning the lessons, right? I mean, like, I guess we're done learning a lesson, but then we get another lesson. And then sometimes life will test us with similar situation in a new arena. And it's like, that's when the free will comes in. It's like, all right, well, which way are you
Yes.
going to go? You have to make that choice,
Yes.
though. Life gives you another opportunity sometimes to see what you're going to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's really to, I say that's really to make sure that you're congruent with what you said you were congruent with. Like
Nice.
it is, I know I use the word test sometimes too. And I was like, it's more like, we're just going to double check to make sure you really got that lesson because you said you got it. And we're going to bring this other character in the mix and see if you really did get it. Are you going to obligate your inner child once again to get your needs met by, you know, somebody that's not of the same energy or capacity to love as you are because you did it in the past 15 more times? Let's just throw it in the mix and just kind of make sure you're congruent. And then once you really are congruent, then they can't even show up in your field of awareness. They don't even, those players don't even appear anymore.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes.
Well, that's actually very interesting because I'm not going to name any names, but I did have a relationship that I regretted having, and
it was necessary.
Went through that one. But then soon after, every time I met another man like that, I saw him coming a mile away, and all the red flags were there. And you better believe it that I couldn't run fast enough away. Yeah. And now I don't really see those kind of men anymore.
Exactly. So, they don't even show because you're not a beacon for them, because remember, frequencies will attract certain frequencies. And so it's like, well, if I hold this belief that I'm not good enough or I'm only worthy of this level of love, then you better believe those moths to a flame are going to find you. But when I hold myself at this level and it's like, no, I love and honor and respect myself at the highest levels. If you're not willing to honor and reflect that back to me, then you have no room in my space. And that goes for all my relationships. And so I'm very big on healthy limits and boundaries, because everything is a relationship, as you know, relationship with our food, our bodies, not just our partners and our lovers and our families and our friends, everything. The stranger at the gas station. Like, I had a client who I remember came into me for his very first session. He's like, some a-hole just spit on my car. I was like, really? Ooh. I was like, wow. I said, isn't that fascinating? You get to see firsthand, real time, how parts of you are pissed off at other parts of you. I said, there is no person spitting on your car. That truly is an illusion, but it's showing up in your field of awareness for a reason. And his inner child was pissed. And he really resisted his inner child. And I said, do you think for a second that anyone spits on my car? Ever? Never. I said, why? Because that's not my internal reality. So why would that play out in my external reality? That's what is going on right now. All the chaos and all the drama you're seeing in the world, that's because that's what's going on in people's internal reality. The conflict, the struggle, the fear, the strife, the resistance. And it's like
the illusion.
This is what I'm talking about. This is why the inner work is so paramount and so vital and so important, not just for your lifetime and your well-being, for the well-being of the all.
Yes. Amen. Well, wow. So how do you protect yourself, though, even though, because you're still dealing with these energies and the entities and people's I would imagine you get into some deep sessions of childhood trauma and pain that gets released. How do you not take it home, so to speak, as a professional?
I learned long ago that, yes, we can pick up other people's energies. And especially as an empath, growing up, even I didn't know what empath meant. And most of us are empaths, actually. And so we do pick up other people's energies, or we take it on or absorb it. And so I no longer do allow that into my field. I hold, my sacred space. And so I can be with a client and not pick up anything that they're clearing. I will help them clear. I also teach clearing exercises, so energetic clearing. Sometimes it's just too much energy. It's not necessarily that it's negative. I have cleared entities from clients, from spaces, I've traveled around the world to do this work. And that particular work, clearing darkness, that is more behind the scenes work that I didn't share until recently. because Source said that was not appropriate to share, because that darkness could also find somebody else if I shared that. And I was trained in the astral plane for many years to be able to go into those dark regions. And yes, I've been attacked. I know what that feels like. I had to go, again, I had to go through everything in order to, as part of my own initiations, to be aware, this is what it feels like to be hijacked. This is what it feels like to be attacked. This is what it feels like to have an entity removed. This is what it feels like to have, you know, hooks in your body. And again, because I'm clairaudient, clairsentient, kinesthetic, I can feel it, I can hear it. Sometimes I can smell it. It's not, it wasn't comfortable for my human. I tried to negotiate with Source. I didn't want necessarily that job or that responsibility. And they said it was part of my mission. And so there are a few students that I do train that are attuned to that kind of work, but it is not for everybody. Mostly what I do is integration of the inner child, healing those soul aspects, and activating them and their consciousness to an expanded state of awareness.
Wow. So, I mean, the work you do is so inherently, I would right brain dominant, right? And it's so inherently in that divine feminine space. Do you feel like the clients that get the best results are those that are able to go there with you? Or, because I would imagine a lot of the left brainer and analytical kinds that are cut off from their intuition and all that are the ones that need it the most, but they're probably not that receptive. Yeah. So tell us about that.
Yes. And kind of that goes back to what I requested with Source. Like, there are many practitioners out there, and some have to work just through the physical, work through, even though Qigong and breath work can be metaphysical, it really is coming through the physicality of a client, so they can start accessing more. So they are, I have taught that in the past, and I can teach that, but that's not really my clientele anymore. Like I said, there's other practitioners that I will refer them to if they still have to go through those states of awareness or those stages to expand their consciousness to be able to hear this or receive this. Because you're right, if they're too left brain, they're not going to understand the concepts of energy or soul integration, or even, that's why the inner child is a good medium for people, even in their left brain, because they can still recall this happened. Will they be as open to understanding, stepping into that role as the divine mother, father, God, goddess? They may have more challenges with that than somebody that understands more of the integration of their own divine feminine and masculine, which is part of, again, healing and being congruent within our divine selves. So again, the left brain, which is so funny because I used to be very left brain, and it is definitely more challenging to reside into that. Like reading contracts and stuff, I used to be excellent at it, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. But for my left brainers, I do manage to work with that. And again, because I couldn't teach what I didn't know, so I know what that feels like. I've been there. I was that. So being able to navigate through that direction from the inner child to get them to a place of more of an expanded awareness where they can understand the relationship with energies and multidimensional stuff. So I'll maybe change my words a little bit to meet them wherever they're at, and that it's still, again, there's always a benefit. There's always, if they're guided to me, I trust they're guided to me.
Yeah, they're there because at least they want to know, and they just maybe don't know how yet.
Yes, one of my dear soul sisters, she said, even people that don't realize they're coming to you, they're being guided from some higher aspect or from their higher self or oversoul.
Oh yeah.
They're being guided for a reason. Like, they may not know it. And it's like, yep,
I would imagine that probably at least half of your clients are like, I don't really know what you're going to do or how you're going to do it, but I'm here.
It's
And
true. I hear that
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot. They're like, I was guided to you and I'm not really sure why, but I feel like I'm supposed to work with you. It's like, beautiful. Yep, you're my
that's all we
client.
need to know.
Yes, that's it. I love it. And that's beautiful reflection and feedback for their own intuition, because that's what I teach my clients. Nothing's outside of you. You have all the answers. I'm just here to help, open those doors a little bit up, or blow them up, whatever we need to do, whatever you're ready for.
Well, yes. And you actually refer to yourself as a facilitator, which I think is so humble and beautiful. And I mean, you're obviously extremely talented and gifted and tapped in. For me and for the audience, when I had my session with you, Rosanne, I felt like, I think you put me in somewhat of a hypnotic state, right? You got me very relaxed. And first of all, what was absolutely essential was for anyone looking to do the healing work, and we're going to talk about how to get in touch with Rosanne, because she does do online, and you don't need to physically be where she is to hire her. But obviously the most important thing is you need to feel safe. Yeah. And without a doubt, I mean, Rosanne has the most beautiful, nurturing, maternal energy you could ever wish for. I mean, wow, you're like mommy to the world, I think. Like, I want you to be my mom. Yeah, I mean, she just makes you feel so safe and not judged. And how beautiful a gift that is, to be in the presence of someone that makes you feel safe and not judged and just accepted and supported. And we all need that in our lives. I mean, that's emotional healing and spiritual fitness in my book. So finding a practitioner that makes you feel safe and not judged and supported is essential. And you did that for me. And then when you got me in that state of very relaxed, I guess it's semi-hypnotic, right? What was interesting is that, like Rosanne said, she didn't necessarily have the answers. Instead, she facilitated my inner child to speak. And just correct me if I'm wrong, please jump in. But this is the way I remember it. Well, first of all, is that right?
You're so cute. Yes, it is not only asking your inner child, because you become your own channel, which is why I love this particular style of hypnosis. It's not me speaking on your behalf. And yes, can I channel for you? But I find it's even more powerful when it's you getting that divine communion and communication through you, from your highest aspects, from your source consciousness, from your inner child. So yes, that is absolutely correct.
Okay, and I would agree with that method, rather than, it'd be just like going to a dietitian or a doctor and them saying, just eat this, eat that, and them telling you, rather than someone to teach you how to listen to your body, read your own feedback, read your symptoms, and
way more empowering.
Learn about yourself. Be your own doctor, be your own expert, be your own, I mean, what's that saying? You have to be a master of yourself is true enlightenment. But so you did that. But I will say, how do we know, Rosanne, someone who's green like me going into that space, that I'm not just making it up?
Oh, yes. I hear that. I've heard that many times, even my own initial sessions as the client or somebody that was being, guided into that hypnosis state. My ego definitely wanted to battle and say, oh, well, I'm just making it up. And I've done this work for so many years that there's no way you would make that up. Okay. And that is also where the inner child comes in, because the more that you trust your inner child and the more they trust you, the more free reign they have to play with what we were taught. Oh, that's just your imagination. Where do you think imagination comes from? That's part of your multidimensional self. Well, how do you know what that even looks like? Where did that come from? You didn't see it in this lifetime. What is imagination? That is your creator self. That is your creative aspects. And yes, are they all tied in to that one consciousness that is playing out in the multidimensional. Absolutely. And so just going, and it doesn't have to be complete deep trance, even if it's a mild, like you said, just going into that guided meditation or that relaxed theta state. That's where the best information comes in, and visualizations. And so I do share with clients to prepare, if you're not doing meditation, doing some kind of regular meditation, or even just listening to some, free YouTube, binaural beats, or some beautiful relaxing meditative music or yoga music or whatever. It naturally puts your mind and body into that state, and which makes it more receptive. And like you said, teaching my clients, so you can have this access. I'll show you the way, and then you can continue to do it yourself. I know how to hypnotize myself. Technically, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I do.
Really? As in, you have to agree, like be willing to let yourself be hypnotized.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's easier for the ego to say, "Oh, well, she hypnotized me." It's like, no, technically.
Yeah.
And I've had some, and Source brought me to some facilitators years ago to teach me the distinction. And there was this one, and she was very like haphazard and all over the place. And I was like, "Why did you bring me here?" And they're like, you still hypnotized yourself, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. They're like, "You've known how to do this for a long time." I was like, because I owned a float tank company also. So if you've ever floated, that is going into that theta brainwave state, which is exactly the same state that we go in, and when we drop into sleep, and then when we come out of sleep, also when we go into meditation and hypnosis. So
beautiful. That's fantastic. So tell us how you balance your masculine and feminine energy, even though you're living so much in the feminine space for your job.
Yes. And it's interesting too. I think this part of my life now, because I grew up so masculine, I even questioned why I wasn't a boy growing up. And I used my femininity as a tool, or as a weapon, if you want to go real shadowy on it. I mean, it was, but that, even saying that, came from my masculinity. Well, I'll use this, these attributes to get what I want. That's yang. That's masculine. And it worked in being successful in business, and yet it wasn't truly honoring the divine feminine. It was it was almost desecrating the feminine. Like, well, I'll use my looks, or I'll use my powerful high heels, or whatever, my body to,
as a weapon.
To get what I want. And again, it was part of how we survived, or how we grew up, or how we felt that we mattered or had self-worth. And yet the shadow side was my inner child's like, "I'm not this, and how dare you use me for this, or compromise me in any way." Even if it wasn't physically compromising, it was maybe just energetically compromising, like just, walking with your, with that kind of stature, like that wasn't, she's like, "This isn't authentic. This isn't who I came here to be." And so going through the dismantling of my ego stories and attachments, and really going into that humbling and surrendering with my inner child, is when I learned how to nurture myself. Because most of us, like I mentioned, did not grow up with that nurturing mother figure. So I learned how to be the ultimate mommy to myself. And I am kind of mommy for a lot of people, but I don't have physical children. So, and Source even said,
the world are your children.
Yeah, Source said the reason it was decided not to have children was so many people come to you as children. To have a child would take away from many. So yes, I do I love all my babies. And so, but I had to learn how to nurture and mother myself in a healthy way, because I didn't have that. I didn't have that with grandmothers, and my mom didn't know how to nurture herself. So it was hard for her to, and she even admitted it. She's like, "You're asking me to give you something I know nothing about." And I was like, wow, she is being so honest and sharing her truth right now. And I get to honor that. And so many years I resisted it. And why can't you just love me the way I want to be loved? And resentment. And it wasn't until I learned how to parent myself. And so that was the main conduit to learn how to embrace my divine femininity, and being vulnerable and learning that vulnerability is a strength and not a weakness. That was also something that is a corrupted code or program in our collective, and hiding that. And it's like, no, my vulnerability, my ability to be authentic and raw and real with my clients allows them to be raw and real with themselves. And so compassion, I needed to learn compassion for myself first and foremost before I could have compassion for others. And those are the mainstays of the allowing the divine femininity. And my divine masculine, with the healthy limits and boundaries, that part takes care of my feminine as it should be. Not dominating, not obligating and not compromising, but complementing.
Complimenting.
Yes.
Thank you. Beautiful word. So how long did it take you to kind of get there from when your mother and grandmother said, I'm so sorry, I can't give you what you need, and you said you had to learn how to mother and parent yourself, and then that led you to being able to develop your own empowered divine feminine? How much time are we talking here? Like years, decades?
No, it was a few years, but I took my healing on like it was my mission, because it was like,
well, it's your work, it's your job.
Yeah. And I didn't know that it was going to be my life's work. I just knew that I couldn't live with the anxieties and the stress and the fear. I mean, I woke up every morning for years, Amy, with clenched jaw, I cracked a wisdom tooth from the inside out.
I was just going to say grinding your teeth, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I would wake up with nail marks in my palms from just going to battle, like almost breaking skin. And I just like, I can't, and it was, I mean, this was like maybe, what is it now? So it was about 10 years ago that it stopped. And about 10, 11 years ago now. And I remember that morning, and I had lived with this. I had anxieties as a child, and they tried to medicate me, and I was a zombie for like 2 days. And I'm like, I can't take this. I have to go to school. And so I just lived with it as the rest of my family had lived with it for years. And I remember I was around 35 or 36, and I had gone through my divorce, and I woke up and I could feel that pain, like someone just punched you. Like I could feel that energy coming, that anxiety coming back in, and that tension. And I didn't even open my eyes, and I just laid there and I said, I don't believe in this anymore. And it was gone. And I never woke up like that again.
That's beautiful. I don't believe in this anymore.
I don't believe in this anymore. Again, because all beliefs are untrue. So what beliefs do you want to make true? What serves you? Because if they're all untrue anyway, I say you might as well write a story that you like, that serves you, that makes you happy, that brings you peace and joy and love. And it was choosing out of fear for so many years. It becomes an addiction. Fear was my ultimate addiction.
And a habit. It becomes a habit, the way of thinking and believing, and energy has habits. Like you wake up and you remember who you are. Oh yeah, I'm the person who's a spaz and is overworked and always late. And you know what I mean? Like I'm over busy and
and exactly. And that's what I mean. That habitual reaction, because that part of us that grew up believing that false belief, again, all beliefs are untrue, has repeated so many times. Like you said, it becomes habitual. It's a knee-jerk reaction. Well, this is who I am because this is what I was told, or this is what I told myself I had to be years ago. And so let's just keep going. And that's where the inner child will come and blow shit up. Your inner child will kick your ass, I say, or they'll enroll other people to kick your ass, whatever it is, to make it uncomfortable enough that you start to surrender. And it's much easier to surrender to your inner child than to surrender to what? Like some people have a very distorted God model. So it's like, well, I'm not surrendering to that. I didn't like that God model. It scared me growing up. So I was just like, I'm scared and confused and I'm lost. And I just would cry. I'm like, something, someone, somewhere, universe, help me. And that's how I got into this work. But it took me hitting that you know, brick wall, so to speak, in
Yes.
order.
Yes.
And so I
Well,
say we will all be interrupted at some levels, whether it's, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, intuitively, all of the above, a combination thereof, however it needs to look. Or you can be more graceful with yourself, choose to participate with your own healing, and you can bypass having to be interrupted at those levels. And most of us have already gone through plenty of suffering. We've just, you know, mitigated it or numbed it out to a certain extent, but it will continue to get bigger, more in your face, more uncomfortable until we complete that lesson. Otherwise, it'll just keep repeating.
yes. So can you give us a quick 101 on how to start getting in touch with our guides, our inner voice, our inner child, our inner
Yes.
wisdom?
Absolutely. So I invite my clients to at least once a day. And I used to do this at night before I went to bed, and I would call upon all my inner children. Sometimes you will just see one, sometimes you'll see many. Sometimes you'll even see little boys and girls from other lifetimes. They all want that love and attention. They're no different. They're all connected. And I would ask, how can I serve you best? How can I love you in the highest and greatest good? How can I serve, what was it? How can I serve you best? How can I love you? What are your wants and needs?
Okay, so I've got a question now because, because for me, now I'm also someone who's trying to be a recovering workaholic. But if I ask that every day, that's going to mean, okay, I'm just going to stay in my pajamas. I'm going to play. I'm going to paint. I'm going to eat ice cream. I'm going to, probably for about a year to help like replenish myself.
They're so cute.
Yeah.
Actually,
So how do we?
People ask that. A lot of people think, "Oh, my inner child is going to want to eat cake and cookies." And
Definitely not work.
I said, actually, they know you have to adult. They know you have certain responsibilities. It's meeting their needs, and like I said, they're very simple. So like back when I was still a workaholic, I was still implementing these things. So that, again, this is why I had to go through this, so I could share with other versions of me, this beautiful blonde version called Amy that is also part of me. And
a little bit behind you.
I would give her one day, at least one day that was hers. And I remember I got called into a real estate meeting. I was selling this house, and it was like a $2.5 million house. And I was like, well, I got to go. I overrode her wishes. It was her day. It was Sunday, was her day. I overrode her. She kicked my ass. Not only did I take the meeting on her day that I had already honored to make her day, I got stuck in that meeting for 5 hours. And she was pissed. I was super resentful because she was resentful. She resented me for compromising her after I said I wouldn't. And then I resented the client. I resented the work. I resented myself. And so that's what I mean by kicking your ass. She will kick your ass. So you take care of her first. And then she's like, yeah, Amy, you can be boss lady. Yeah, Amy, you can be, super hot girlfriend. Yeah, Amy, you could do all of these things and be the superstar, in your life and your relationships, but not over her, not compromising her. You do not negotiate with little Amy. Use always her first. And then she's like, yeah, we can go. I'll give it another example. I remember my husband and I were working on our mountain house years ago, and I already see clients all week long, and my weekends were sacred. And I would go up to the mountain. This was my retreat house. And he's like, aren't you going to paint those doors or those windowsills or something that day? And I looked at him and I was like, no, old Rosanne would have obligated those parts of my inner child, myself, to meet his needs because I want his love and acceptance and approval, right? I did it with all my relationships. Surprise.
Yep.
So
been there.
So yep, totally. So I said, no, my inner child, needs her needs met first. So I went to the farmer's market. We made some yummy food. We did a puzzle. When's the last time you sat and did a puzzle?
Fun.
She was so freaking happy. I did the entire puzzle that afternoon, took a nap with her. I never took naps.
Love
Yeah,
it.
exactly. She was so happy and so filled up. The next day, I literally could hear her. She's like, we could do whatever you need to do. I was spackling walls. I was doing, and it was fun. She made it fun, Amy. She didn't drag her feet, make it miserable, resent me, resent him, resent this house. Like, they are very simple, but we have to honor and respect them, meet their needs first, trust their word and what they need. And then the rest is just easy. And it gets real quiet up here. We're not thinking about what happened in the past, not worrying about the future, what's to come, because they teach us presence. And
That
they will
is
take
beautiful.
you, and they're amazing. They're the ultimate guides. I have clients all the time, like, what guides do you talk to? Or how do I meet my guides? I'm like, they are your guides. Like, no spiritual bypassing. You talk to them first. They'll give you all the answers.
That is beautiful. So yeah, so someone like me who's afraid I would get lost in, like, the 5-year-old land of just play, you're saying it's kind of unwarranted that, or maybe even initially, like, okay, you might kind of be stuck there for a little bit, but eventually she's going to be like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, right? No, she's like, like I said, they're very simple. They need to, it's more about the acknowledgement and getting their needs met, but it doesn't have to be all day. I mean, if you just do a little bit a day, then you're good to go. I was still in that work mode. So I had to designate a day because I was very scheduled back then.
Right.
And then it would become, once I started talking to her daily, it's like, oh, we can go on this little hike. And then it would be a quick hike. And then I'd go about my day. And and so it's not, she's with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. She can hear you, see you, feel you. So it's when you're in the car, you're singing to her, you're singing that song. She's with you. You're at the store. You're like, would you like this? You're constantly in that dialogue with her. And then once they get to that place of liberation, like I said, there's no fuss, there's no nothing, because they know Big Amy's going to take care of me. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to squeak. I don't have to squawk. I don't have to throw a tantrum. Because I tell my clients, anytime you feel bitchy, scared, moody, anxious, angry, sad, depressed, that's usually little you vying for attention, desperate. Look at me. Look at me. What do all children want? Love and attention. Pay attention to me, mommy. Watch me. That's it. So once you give them that, they're very simple. And like I said, she would write my work emails. I mean, I'd be like, do you want to write this with me? Sure. Because that empowers them. So bring them in to things. They're already there. So bring them in. She picked out your cute sweater today. Like, thank you for picking, like, what would you like to wear today? What would you like to eat today? And I promise you it's not cake. She knows what you need. She does. And
That's cool.
My clients think that so many ask me that, is it going to be cookie and cake? And I'm like, no, I swear they know what your body needs and they want that too. Because they're all about health and wellness and happiness and peace and harmony. It's all connected. The body is no different than the energy around it. So
that is beautiful. So basically what I'm hearing you say is, like, once you kind of fill that deficit, it kind of normalizes. I mean, initially, like someone like me who's neglected my inner child my whole damn life, pretty much, I might have to make a lot of initial deposits.
I say, I love that. Yes, I say, fill that cup. I say, and that's, you use the exact same word I use. I say, she's kind of in the deficit, so you're going to have to lay it on thick at first, lay it on thick with the compliments, with the acknowledgement, with the validation, with the thank you, with the presence. And then it becomes
automatically part of you again. You integrate it.
Yeah. And then she doesn't have to remind you, hey, what about me? Hey, you forgot about me. Hey, then it's just, it becomes a new habit. And
or like what you said, when your little bitchy thing comes out, or like, why did I say that? Or why am I snapping? Or that's a reminder. Oh, I've been neglecting her. No wonder why.
Oh, yes.
That's a sign.
I say you stop immediately and you check in with little you. Like, what do you need? Are you scared? Are you sad? What is it? I apologize immediately. I apologize. I went unconscious there for a moment, whatever it was.
I love it. Well, this is just so bang on exactly what my show is about, and helping people, particularly women, balance their masculine and feminine energy. Because how many women, just override all the desires, all that juicy, yummy, fun, indulgent, playful, buoyant, light energy that we all are as females, because we're trying to do the right thing, and we're trying to be responsible, and we're trying to be everything to everybody, and be the super women, and God, how sad. And so our inner children we take care of everybody else's kids, right?
Yeah.
And for people like you and me, the world are our kids and our clients are our kids, and we're trying to nurture everybody. But wow, it's just so sad. Like, no wonder why
Yeah.
our divine feminine has been put in the closet, because we
Oh,
just
for
don't
sure.
really even, we don't really even
Acknowledge.
feed her. Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
acknowledge her. So,
Absolutely. And it is a deeper program too, Amy. I mean,
mm,
we could, bring
yeah.
this up in another time, in another place, but it
Hmm.
does go way back to the desecration of
The
that
feminine.
split. We weren't supposed to be separate. It was
Mm,
supposed to be this unified divine feminine, divine masculine in all of us. And
mm,
I work with a lot of men that have a lot of femininity and a lot
mm-hmm,
of women that
mm-hmm,
have a lot of masculinity, because we have gone
mm.
outside of that congruency. And so it's bringing all those parts home so we can nurture those parts and validate those parts as the feminine and the masculine. And that's where we become um, completely integrated. That's the holistic.
Right on. And ultimately, that is the objective of my show,
I
because
love that. I know. It's
it
beautiful.
really is. Because, like I always tell people, it's not that I'm not a feminist. I'm about integrating and having the discretion to know when to use which one.
Yeah.
You want to know, when do I need to be more in my masculine? When do I need to be more in my feminine? So you can be happy and fulfilled. So you can have a joyful, somewhat easy life, that you
Yes.
can self-actualize. I mean,
Yes.
that's what it's all about. It's not, I like
Yeah.
what you said. They're
Totally.
complementary. They're not competitive.
No. And you really can. With any relationship, just because that's our internal relationship, but any relationship should be that complement. And it's like
Mm,
um and I've had many relationships, and so I understand the incongruency of them, or the
mm-hmm,
imbalance where it's like, oh well, that's the man's role. It's like, no, my
mm,
husband cleans. Like, why
mm-hmm,
is that my role? No, that's,
mm-hmm,
I cook, he can
mm-hmm,
clean. That's,
mm-hmm,
I think
mm-hmm.
that's fair. And so it's also knowing, like, um um, when to rest, when to allow, when to receive. That's your divine feminine. When to take action, when to move, when to get things done. That's your masculine. And so
Mm-hmm.
they are counterparts, and having that beautiful dance, being unified, so it's not so out of balance, which we were, and that was part of the patriarchal system, which is why so many feminine females went into their masculine dominant side, because we had to compete, or
Survive,
we had
survive.
to survive.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And there was not a lot of models. If you were a divine feminine, you were considered weak or damsel in distress. Those are all corrupted codes and
mm-hmm,
constructs and programs that we work at clearing at a deeper level, for not just ourselves, but for the collective. And so, yeah, this is why I call it multidimensional, because it's not just, like I said, it's not
yes.
just your story, it's all our stories.
And to your point too, I mean, I know we're getting toward the end of the show, but my gosh, it goes so much deeper than that, even, and
Yeah.
inherently in the fall and the whole thing with religion and
Oh, all of
the
it.
subconscious programming that cultures have, that, the female is the,
For
the whole thing.
generations, for eons. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's another
we got
show.
to heal that one on another show.
Yeah.
We'll do that in 60 minutes next time. Oh my gosh, this has been
You're
so
amazing.
fabulous. Yeah,
Thank
Rosanne,
you.
amazing. So tell us, as we come toward the end here, is there anything else that's just burning on you to share with our audience today?
Whew. I would simply like to reiterate, if there is something that's triggering you, whether it be a partner, whether it be society, whether it be government, whatever you see that is causing some kind of disturbance or distress, please know that there's something deeper inside that is calling for healing and clearing. So
Mhm.
start there before we point fingers and I want that to change, or I don't like them, or blah, blah, blah. Look inside first and
Can you
ask your
be
inner child.
specific on that? Like, I'm not really clear what
Um,
you're trying to say. It
sure.
sounds like you're trying to be very polite and politically correct, but I'm not really clear. So you see
I will
people
give you
that,
an example for sure.
yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
one of my clients the other day, she is awakened, beautiful awakened woman, and
Mm-hmm.
is on her spiritual path, and yet she's getting. She said it exceptionally well. She said, "I've got one foot on this side, and I go one foot on this side, and the other side is looking at the corruption and the division of
the unrest and
of society and governments and religion, all of that, all her the external world, right? And so I asked her permission, and with her permission, I talked to her inner child, and her inner child went right to what age that unrest came from. And it was not feeling safe and secure with her mother. And so that was the foundation. But this trigger got her attention. So she brought it up in session, which was exactly why that showed up in her field of awareness. Because there's plenty of other people, myself included, that saw the same things online or in the media that didn't have the same reaction she did. So why is it causing a reaction for you?
You mean that triggered, like, because you saw it, it must have upset you, but you didn't get triggered?
No.
Okay.
I can see. So that's the expanded state of consciousness. You can see it. Does my human have preferences? Absolutely. My human doesn't want to see hurt or violence or anything like that. That's my human preference. But my expanded consciousness can understand the perfection in everything. Why certain people need to play out certain roles. Why certain people are still participating with these lower vibrational energies. That too serves a purpose in awakening even more people. And her bringing it up to me in regards to why is this triggering me, that led me to her inner child, who nailed it right first. First answer, there it was. And we cleared it, and it was like, now you know why that had to show up in your field. Now it doesn't have to. And if it does, you can see it from a different perspective. You could see it from a higher perspective or an expanded state of awareness. So that's what I mean.
Yeah, well, I feel like I have to have you back on the show to talk to us about this whole energy thing and how when you're resonating with things, as this is what you're getting at, is you're going to resonate on a certain level.
Yeah.
What you're attracting, what you're bringing in, what you can even see or acknowledge is all about what you're putting out. And that's just such a mystery for people, because like, why would I want to put this out?
Absolutely. Because then that's the illusion of separation. We think it's outside of us. And it's like, no, if you're seeing conflict out there, then there's some conflict going on in here. I don't usually see conflict. It doesn't show up in my field. I don't have, I don't watch TV anyway. So there's one way it doesn't show up in my field, but even on, social media, I mean, I'm not on social media, every day, but when I am, I choose to, again, put my intention and attention on things that are pleasant. I like looking at animals. I like, I like other, exactly, beautiful photography or other like-minded people. And so that was the reminder that Source had given me through my channeled message today that I did post on Instagram. So it was very similar and apropos with what we spoke about here on your show today. So thank you.
Okay. So to summarize what you just said, the parting message for people is what? Consider.
Consider the root of where this unrest comes from. If you are triggered or you are feeling disturbances, first ask your inner child, where is this really coming from? Because we're rarely upset with what we think we're upset about.
Yes.
So we'll just leave it there.
Same as like a symptom in your body, right? It's rarely the cause is the symptom, so.
100%.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm all kinds of fired up. Okay. So Rosanne Grace, please tell people how they can find you.
Thank you. Yes. So you can find me on my website at rosannegrace.com. That's ROSANNEGRACE.com. Also at Instagram.com/Rosanne.Grace. I'm rarely on Facebook, but I do. If you are more of a Facebook user, you will find me at rosanne.grace.home. I will share the same content there. And I also have a YouTube channel, Ascension with Grace. And when Source guides me, I have a podcast called the Enlightenment Project podcast that was actually supposed to be a book. And then once quarantine hit, they said, stop writing, start speaking. And so I only did like once a month podcast. It wasn't anything regular. It was really just when Source was guiding me and inspired to share. So that is also available on.
So you have a podcast, or you had a podcast?
We'll just say have, because if they decide they want me to share again, I will share. But I believe there's like 9 episodes from last year that you can tune into.
What's the name of it again?
Enlightenment Project Podcast.
Oh my
Rosanne
gosh, you
Grace.
didn't tell me that.
I know, because I'm not you're like a podcaster. I'm not a podcaster. I just share.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well,
so yeah.
Wow. Awesome. I love it. Okay. And everybody, those will be in the show notes. So if you're driving, walking, doing something busy, just take a look at the show notes, and I will link up your connection to Rosanne to get in touch with her. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amy. It's been an honor and a pleasure always to connect.
Oh my gosh, it's all mine. Okay, everyone. So you know what to do. Please check out Rosanne Grace. Look at those show notes. And wow, if you enjoyed the show today and you learned anything of value, please share it. Please rate the show. And if you would be so kind as to write a quick review, that would really mean the world to me. And I really would be indebted to you. It really does help the show, and it helps me to know that I should keep going.
Yes.
So exactly. You know the deal, Rosanne. So, okay, everyone. Well, thanks again. And I already can't wait to be with you next time. Bye, everybody.
Would you like to support my mission to help empower people all over the world to be all of who they truly are? If so, please subscribe to the show, leave a review on iTunes, and share it with a friend. And if you're looking to take immediate action to align your energy and optimize your health, visit amyfournier.com. Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite. Let's awaken her together in you. I'm your hostess, Amy Fournier, and I already can't wait to be with you again and for you to hear what I have planned for the next show.
Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. To learn more about Amy, check out her website, amyfournier.com. That's AMYFOURNIER.com. You can also check out Amy's live and on-demand virtual fitness and yoga classes, and sign up for her newsletter to receive a free mini ebook of 3 of her top tips for making holistic health a lifestyle. Again, that's amyfournier.com, and get your ebook sent to your email immediately. Connect with Amy on the daily on Instagram at FitAmyTV, FitAmyTV, and watch many of the podcast episodes and subtopic clips on her YouTube channel, which is also FitAmyTV. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.